So hi guys, this video is about AS Business Paper 1 answering techniques. The first video we made was about the time management of AS Business Paper 1. We are having our exam on 6th May 2025 and this entire video will help you to understand that how to write answers in AS Business Paper 1. For this particular video, we are actually going to use our specimen exam for 2023 as you can see on your screens right now. That your paper 1 will be divided into two sections, section A and section B. Section A will have 4 questions and section B will have 2 questions. And out of those 2 questions, you will have to attempt any one, right? So now I'll just talk about each part of the question one by one. I'm going to talk about, if you see on your screen right now, you have 2 markers, you have 3 markers, you can see a 5 marker in question number 4, and then there's an 8 marker and a 12 marker in section B. So I'm going to talk about this entire video will just cover each question one by one, and let's just start from a 2 marker. And as you can see on your screen right now, let's say question 1 part A, define the term secondary research. And you can also see question 2A, you can also see question 3A. All these 3 questions are for 2 markers. And when you're about to attempt a 2 marker, you have to make sure that you write a very high quality definition. Some students really struggle in doing this stuff because probably it's about learning, and a lot of students, I also do not much like learning, but when you're writing definitions, you might have to learn the key terminologies related to that particular terminology. Let's say in question 1A, it's asking you to define secondary research. So now when you're defining secondary research, you cannot just describe it. You'll have to actually use the keywords: market research, internal sources of secondary research, external sources of secondary research. You have to use the key terms when writing the definition. It should not be a word-to-word definition as written in your textbook, but it needs to be a very high quality definition, because these are just the easy marks, right? And you cannot just lose marks in this particular question. This is how you write a 2 marker: just a brief statement, a brief definition, maybe of 2, 3, 4 lines maximum. Maybe you can give examples also if you want, but that's not needed. But you just need to write a very high quality definition. That's it, right? For 2 markers. And for 3 markers, as you see, this question 1B, question 2B, and question 3B. These are 3 markers, and it's, let's say, if I read question 1B, so it's explain one advantage to a business of data collected using primary research methods. So it's asking you to explain one advantage to a business. Every 3 marker will ask you to explain any one point. It could be a one advantage, it could be one disadvantage, it could be one reason, it could be something one. And for a 3 marker, you just have to write one paragraph, and you just have to, you don't need to write any introduction paragraph, and whatever point you think of, you first have to state your point. Always, whenever you write a proper 3 marker, you always first state your point, and then you have to explain that particular point. Let's say if I'm answering this one, explain one advantage to a business of data collected using primary research methods. So I have to think of any one advantage. Let's say the data is the latest data according to whatever the market trends are, if I'm writing this point. So if I'm writing about that the data will be up to date according to market trends, I state it, and then I explain it, that what do you mean by this point? What do you mean that the data would be up to date according to the market? And why would this answer this question? Why would this be an advantage for the business? So like whatever point you state in a 3 marker, you ask yourself 2 questions. What do you mean by this point, and why this point is an answer to this question? And then the answers that would pop into your head for these 2 questions would be the explanation of that particular point. And that is how you write a 3 marker, just one proper paragraph. Whatever point you want to write, you state your point, and then you explain your point with 2 questions in your head. What do you mean, and why this point is an answer to this question, right? And again, this 3 marker is not a very tough one to answer, I believe, but a lot of students lose their marks in these 3 markers just because they're not able to explain the right point. Even if you state the right point, and if you do not explain it well, it won't add much value. And you should know then in a 2 marker, it's the entire 2 marks are for knowledge. But for 3 marker, 1 mark is for knowledge and 2 marks are for application. This application part is a real technical one, because a lot of students just confused with this application thing, because they really consider that application is something when you have the case study and you have to refer back to the case. And that's not just the application. Application is about the real understanding. whatever point you write, when you write an answer, it should feel like that you actually understand that point. It should not feel like that you just have learned it by heart and you're just copying and pasting from the book. It should actually feel like that you understand that what this point means. And it's not just about referring back to the case. 2 marks for application means you have to show that understanding in your answer, right? And obviously, you'll have to practice and write 3 markers more often if you really want to get the grip of it. And you can maybe use our playlist, paper one. We have paper one playlists in which we have actually attempted these 2 and 3 markers. You can actually follow that playlist and you'll get a hold uh, of the answering techniques for 2 and 3 markers too. So yeah, that's 2 marker, 3 marker, and if you now see question number four will be a 5 marker. And if I read this question that's on your screen right now, analyze one way in which ethics may influence the activities of a business. How ethics can influence the activities of business. And again, if you see this 5 marker, this is again asking you for 1 point. Just like a 3 marker, it's again asking for a 1 point, but it's not asking you to explain. If you observe the keyword, in a 3 marker, it's explain, but in a 5 marker, it's analyze. The keyword is different. So for 5 marker, the examiner is going to ask you just 1 point, but the examiner is going to ask you to analyze that point. He or she is not going to ask you to explain that point, right? So analyze one, and for the 5 marker, what structure you need to follow? You can write one introduction paragraph, a short intro paragraph, maybe of 2 lines, and then you will have to write one proper paragraph in which you will state your point, and the point that you have stated will have to be analyzed using a very good and a very easy to grasp technique, which I often teach to my students, which is BTL. This BTL technique really is very useful when you want to analyze your points in detail. BTL is basically because, therefore, leading to. What do you mean by this point? What's the impact of that point? And what are the consequences of the point that you have just stated? And when you are actually using this BTL technique, you can maybe, if let's say I'm writing this 5 marker, analyze one way in which ethics may influence the activities of a business. So I can define ethics in introduction paragraph, and maybe I could state that one of the ways in which ethics can influence the activities of a business uh, is the way in which they treat their employees, let's say, right? So I can then explain it that this is because if a business is ethical, they would not want to exploit their employees, they would not want to discriminate them on the basis of their color or gender or race maybe, and therefore uh, this would impact the activities of a business because they would be paying them on a different scale, they would be treating them on a different scale, they would have a very different HR policy. And then I just further go on to explain that point. That's what I'm trying to say. So for a 5 marker, you write an introduction paragraph and you think of one solid point which you can explain it very well using the BTL technique. So yeah, that's 5 marker. This is all about section A. You can see these are 4 questions in section A. And let's just roll into section B. If you just see the section B now. So section B will have 2 questions, and now in paper 1, you will have to make a choice that which question do you like and which question do you want to attempt in that exam. Because when you are selecting, and you should also refer back to the time management video I'm telling you, because in that particular video I told that how the selection should be made. That's also the very important part of that video. But when you are selecting the point, when you're selecting the question, out of this question 5 and 6, I have to select any one, right? And now when I attempt a 8-marker question, let's say if I go for question 5A or 6A, whatever question I select, for 8-marker, I will have to write an introduction paragraph, and the answer should ideally be in then 2 main paragraphs. So let's say if I write a 8-marker question, I'll write an introduction paragraph in which I would define the point, whatever the question is about, the keyword in the question. And then I will have to write 2 main paragraphs. Just like in a 5-marker, we just make an introduction paragraph and one main paragraph in which I state and then use BTL. In 8-marker, I will have to write an introduction paragraph, and then I will have to write 2 main paragraphs. And again, in each paragraph, I will state the point, and I can use that BTL technique again to explain that or analyze that point. So my 8-marker would be like an introduction paragraph and then 2 main paragraphs. No need of a conclusion in 8-marker. And you have to think. And again, I would tell you, because a very, very important point, that you might know maybe more than 2 points. Let's say if I read this question 5A for you, analyze two reason why it is important for a business to set smart objectives. Why is it important for a business to set smart objectives? So it's very important because it helps to motivate the people. It helps to set clear targets for everyone. It helps to assess the performance over time. It helps to attract investors in the longer run. Maybe if you can just summarize it into a business plan. So there are a lot of points that I can think of, but I don't need to think of I don't need to write all the points. I need to think of two main points which I can explain well. The objective for a student, if you are going to appear for the exam, it's not about knowing more points. It's about selecting the best points to write in that particular answer, and which you can explain well. The focus is not just the point, the focus is explanation of that point, right? So for 8 marker, introduction and then two main paragraphs. And for a 12 marker now, the last part of this paper, the 12 markers, if you see this 5B and 6B in this paper, so 5B and 6B will be of 12 markers. And for 12 markers, the structure that you need to follow is introduction paragraph, two main paragraphs, and then a conclusion paragraph. An introduction, two main paragraphs, and then a conclusion paragraph. In introduction, again, I'll have to write the definition of the keyword that I can just see in the question. And then the two main paragraphs are, because 12 marker is generally the evaluate. If you see these two questions, 5B and 6B, both of these questions are asking you to evaluate. It's about evaluate the statement, evaluate the view. An evaluative question is obviously a two-sided question. It's a discussive question. It's like in favor and against type of questions. So whatever the question is, let's say if I read 5B for you, so that's a big question, but you'll understand the concept. Evaluate the view that a mission statement is only important to a bank if it significantly influences the strategy and tactics of that business. The mission statement is only important to a bank if it significantly influences the strategy and tactics. Now, it's asking that mission statement is only important for this particular purpose. So if I would be writing, I would define introduction, the mission statement, and define mission statement and introduction. In first paragraph, I would write about the favor of the statement. Yeah, that's mission statement is actually a very important part when forming the overall business strategy, because it just gives you that sense of where you're going, right? And I'll then again write against paragraph that mission statement is not only important for designing strategy and tactics. In fact, it's also important to communicate with different stakeholders. It's also important to provide you the sense of direction for your organization. It's also different part of the question, right? And then in the last, I write a conclusion paragraph, and in which I will have to give my opinion, in which you as a student will have to give your opinion. That what do you think? What's your opinion? Is mission statement only important when forming the strategy and tactics? You give your opinion, and then you have to justify that opinion, and justification should be of very, very, very high quality. And again, I'll say that just listening to the answering techniques would not just be enough. You'll have to go through in fact, you should actually write with me within the videos, the paper one videos which I have uploaded. We have just organized into a proper playlist. You should just go and check that playlist out. You should just play each video one by one, in which I have actually written the 2 markers, 3 markers, 5 markers, 8 markers, 12 markers, and you should just follow those videos very, very regularly and write those answers if you really want to understand the structure well. So yeah, for 2 marker, you write a proper high quality definition. For 3 marker, you state your point, just one paragraph, state your point, what do you mean and why this point is an answer to this question. And for 5 marker, you write an introduction paragraph, one main paragraph, state it, use BTL. For 8 markers, introduction paragraphs, 2 main paragraphs, and in each paragraph, you state your point, use BTL. In 12 marker, it's introduction, 2 main paragraphs, and a conclusion paragraph. So yeah, this is how you think and approach the answering techniques of paper 1. And having said that, after you have watched the entire video, the last thing that I would just want to tell you, that whatever the structure you are just being taught, or whatever structure I'm telling you, whatever structure you have followed up till now, whatever structure your teacher might have just told you, or whatever structure you have been practicing since last few months, or maybe practice in the future, the structure is always just the suggested structure. The structure, the approach is not the mandatory part of any exam. You can maybe change the structure. There are students who doesn't make paragraph, let's say, but that's not recommended, obviously. But it's whatever I've told you is not the rule. It's not like something mandatory and you must do it. These are all the suggestions. These are all the guidances, and there is no right and wrong structure always. There can be multiple structures and multiple ways of answering the questions, and you can use any structure you like. If you're following my structure, then obviously you would find it easier to answer the question, and you would be more manageable when you're approaching that exam on 6th May 2025. So yeah, that is all about the paper one answering techniques, and we are just throwing a lot of more videos about how to answer paper twos and paper threes and paper fours, obviously, if that's applicable for you. So yeah, have fun. Best of luck for the exam. Bye bye.